My name is Neil Claasen, and I am the clothing manager at Presbyterian Social Ministries. The way that I manage the department, especially and the core business that we do, is to sort donated clothing and to actually put that in inventory so that we have that available to people. And so what we do is the clothing that comes in as in-kind donations will be sorted and inspected first of all. So the volunteers will look at a piece of an item. They will make sure that it's gently used. So gently used means that it's free of stains, it's free of defects, so it's not ripped, all the buttons are there, the zippers are working, that it's not smelly, that there's not a lot of pet hair on it as well. And then they would determine if the item is threadbare and it's really worn a lot, we can't really use that. A big part of what we do and a big part of the philosophy behind our clothing is it empowers people to feel better. When they receive the clothing, they mustn't feel like it's a hand-me-down and it's just something that's it's just like, here, just take this, and this should be good enough for you. We want people to, part of our human psyche when we receive nice things, that is one of when we receive nice things, we feel good. And for us to give somebody something nice is the whole goal behind what we do. So we want to make sure that all those items have been inspected, that they're in very good condition, that they look decent. Now sometimes we get a lot of items that are very popular and very high demand. So sometimes we have to be a little bit more lenient in the standards that we have, but generally speaking we have very high standards for what we do. And that's part of what our volunteers do. So they will see what the item, and if the item's good and once it's inspected, they will look to see what the size of the item is and the category for the item, and then they would put it in the appropriate box. So we sort our clothing by women's, men's, and children's clothing. We have different categories in each one of those three main groups. In men's clothing, we, for instance, would have pants, long sleeve shirts, short sleeve shirts, and shorts. The pants, there's about 4 or 5 different categories for sizes. The same with the long sleeve shirts and the short sleeve shirts. But in shorts, for instance, we have 2 categories, just certain sizes and smaller and certain sizes and bigger. Now the ladies' clothing, we have a lot more. So when you're looking, again, short sleeve, long sleeve. But for instance, in the ladies' pants, there would be 12 different sizes or size groupings that we would basically put that in. And in kids' clothing, for instance, we don't have the actual space to break it down any further, so we sort kids by age and also by season. So kids' clothing that's a 3T, for instance, could go either in a summer or a winter box, and we don't expand more than that. So currently we sort in 88, 89 different categories. I sometimes change those as well. So again, it's just part of like looking at what works best and what suits our clientele best. What do they want and how do we sort things in the way that makes sense for them. So the boxes that we sort our clothing into measures 15 by 15 by 24. So it's a pretty big box. And a lot of clothing items, there would be up to 100 items in a box, and sometimes even more. In kids, the small kids sizes, there could easily be 200 items in a box. And what we then do is, if the box is full, I will take the box, I will actually weigh it and inventory it. And once it goes into the inventory, we actually have a computerized system that actually tracks everything that we have. Each box, I tell the system where that box is in our facility as well. So we have varied places where we could put it, but each place is identified by some sort of code. And I can say, these children's clothing goes into this area. Men's clothing go, generally speaking, in this area. And that's the way that I would sort that. Because we have an inventory system, if somebody calls me up and says, "Hey Neil, I'm looking for some short sleeve 2XL men's shirts. Do you have any, and how many can you give me?" I can go into my system. My system will say I have 3 boxes available. One box might have 50 in it, the next box might have 53, and the other box will be 54. Most people just want the box, but if they wanted larger items, they can go in and I can say to them, this is the total amount that I have available. Do you want all of them, for instance, and things like that. So that is the reason why I actually have an inventory system, because it allows me to serve my customers better. They can call me, they can ask for an item, and I can say, this is what I have, do you want this? I can also track the items that have been in my inventory the longest, and that way I can actually rotate my inventory and make sure that we don't keep inventory in our area for too long. Becomes very challenging when you keep clothing for more than 2 years, because we live in Florida, and so it's very easy for insects and things like that to get into it. We want to avoid that. We don't want to get to the point that we have to re-inspect the clothing, after 2 or 3 years to make sure that it's still in good condition. We need to make sure that it gets sent out as quickly as possible, so that there is nothing else that we have to worry about.